She's a former high school math teacher and assistant football coach at the Charles Page High School in Sand Springs, and she's also a former softball player for the University of Tulsa. Cassandra Crawford-Sigler is the career coach for students exploring health sciences and pre-health professions. She is also serves as an adjunct faculty for the nursing program at the Oxley College of Health Sciences, and she's a former associate professor of nutritional sciences at Northeastern State University. We also have a special guest contributor today. His name is Heath Fusco, and he is part of the class of 2022, and he's a double major in political science and Spanish, and he is also a global scholar here at the University of Tulsa. So we're excited to have him. All right, before we get started on experiential learning, I want to explain to you how learning works. Right here is the Edgar Dale cone of learning, and it's a pretty basic idea, so we're cramming a lot of information into one small little pyramid, but I wanted to go over this because it makes a lot of sense. You remember about 10% of what you read, 20% of what you hear, 30% of what you see, and 50% of what you see and hear. All of that is considered passive learning, which means the learner doesn't really take control or have participate in their learning. They're just given things and expected to remember them. Okay, you will remember 70% of what you say and 90% of what you say and do. And so today's webinar, we're going to spend a lot of time hanging out in those bottom two, the bottom two sections of the cone, because that's where experiential learning comes in. You have a tendency to remember more when you're experiencing it than when somebody is just telling you about it. All right, so what is experiential learning? It's a holistic philosophy of education based on the notion that an individual's life experiences, education, and work play a central role in their learning and understanding of new knowledge. Okay, and this is a really great quote from Albert Einstein: learning is experience. Everything else is just information. And that is so true. Okay, so when you think about when you're learning, if you're sitting in a classroom, you have access to information. Right? Your professor is giving you information. You're watching a documentary. All of that is information that you're processing. Your learning kind of comes when you start asking the questions. So the student inquiry part of it is when you become curious about something and you begin to ask questions. Well, if I saw this in class, how does that apply to me? Okay, that's when your learning really starts to kick in. Okay, then when you add student experience into that, that's when you can begin to master skills and concepts. So if you can put all three of those together, then true learning really takes place. So there you go, student mastery. All right, so today we're going to talk a little bit about Kolb's experiential learning cycle. All right, and we're going to start with a student has a concrete experience. So you have some kind of an experience. We'll use an internship as an example. So your first day of internship, you go and you have all of these experiences. When you get home, you want to have a reflective observation of that experience. So you want to reflect on it. You want to write it down, what happened, how you felt about it, how you reacted to certain situations. And then you're going to use some critical thinking skills to link that experience to previous ideas and understanding. So that's where you're going to take the time to say, oh, I understand that this happened in my internship, and we talked a little bit about this in my class. So you're linking these things to previous knowledge, okay? And then you're going to use that conceptualization, and you're going to create and test a hypothesis or a plan of action to move forward. And then you're going to have another concrete experience. And you're just going to keep revolving around that cycle as you begin to learn and master more things. The best example I can think of for this is easiest example for me to tell you is when I was in college. I was a student teacher, and we were part of a pilot program where we had to teach for 4 days in a row. I was with a group of students, and I was a PE teacher at that time. So we had to teach for 4 days in a row, and every day our lessons that we were teaching the students was videoed. It was recorded, and it was really stressful because we were in front of the camera the whole time, and we had 30 kids in front of us, and we're trying to teach them and get them to understand something. And then on Friday, we met with all of the interns. So then instead of my little group of 4 or 5 of us, there were 30 of us, and we're going over snippets of our videos from the whole week. Okay, and so we had our mentor teacher, we had our professor, and then we had all of our peer students there that were reflecting and making observations with us. And so we would take that information that we learned, we would formulate new lesson plans, and we would go back the next week and we would teach based off of the information that we got in our observations. And you would be really surprised at how fast you can learn when you're reflecting on the experiences you had, whether it's a good experience or a bad experience. And right now I'm going to stop sharing the screen, and we're going to talk with Brooke and Cassandra a little bit about what experiential learning looks like in their respective colleges. Go ahead, Brooke.
All right, so just to give you a little bit of background, I work with students in arts and sciences, and so kind of speaking to what Kelly was talking about before, different programs all have different requirements, and so it can look a little bit different depending on what degree program you're in. So speaking from things that I have experience in, I have an education background, and so I went to TU, and the part of our curriculum was to do what we called cluster class courses that were training specifically in those specific subject areas. And so you have those built in, and you also have your student teaching, which is also another experiential learning opportunity, where you're really getting in and getting your feet wet, getting a feel for that education. And then last semester, we also got a chance to participate in media studies students, getting some information about their built-in internship component that is built into their course load for their degree program. And so kind of how they go about that process of obtaining that experience and how they get it worked through into their courses. And so just there's different opportunities in each. Some of them are already built in. Some of them are going to be a little bit more on the end of the student to facilitate that opportunity for them. It's probably going to be during the summer or maybe over a break where they have that opportunity to gain that experience. So it just depends. Every degree program is a little bit different in how they structure things. So that's kind of what it looks like in arts and science.
So in health professions, just to give you a little bit about my background, I've been in health professions as a registered dietitian and a medical technologist for over 20 years. So taking that knowledge, I brought that to higher education. And at TU, we have degrees in nursing and speech language pathology, exercise and sports science, and then a master's in athletic training. All of these have experiential learning built into the degree programs. So what that looks like is the students gain their knowledge in the classroom, and then they take that and get their experiential learning in hands-on practical application, whether it's termed as clinicals or internship or supervised practice experience, but that's built into the degree plans. And so as somebody who's had that experience myself, I can tell you that that's the way that the knowledge is then translated into hands-on learning. And I can remember when I went through my own master's program as a registered dietitian, that it's taking that knowledge and then having that opportunity to apply it in a real world setting where it actually then the learning really clicks and takes place, and being able to work with individuals who are knowledgeable in the field. And so having those opportunities was really what helped advance me in my own studies.
Well, thank you. So if you listen to their comments, in those schools, there are a lot of degree programs. And in fact, in Cassandra's school, that all of her degree programs have a component of experiential learning built into it. So that means that, they don't necessarily have to go seek out other experiential learning. They've already got it built in. Some of them do, look for other things and try to build that learning. Same thing for Brooks College, especially the College of Education. That's already built in. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about things that aren't built in for you. And so how can you gain that experience if it's not built into your degree anyway? And so I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to continue on. Let's see here. Okay. All right. So I just want to kind of take one little segment of the cycle and talk a little bit about it. Okay, use thoughtful reflection to help propel you forward. I cannot stress this enough that this is the most important step. So often you hear people say, oh, we always learn from our mistakes. We learn from our mistakes, which is 100% true. And I can tell you as a teacher, I would tell myself that all the time, or tell my students that. But sometimes we forget that we are learning from successful experiences too. And the problem is that we forget what we learned because it was good and we just move on with it. We don't take time to reflect on that. So if you have a successful experience, once it's over, you need to reflect on that and kind of break that down too. Okay, what made that so good? Okay, what would I change? How did I feel about it? How did I react in a stressful situation? And what made it so great? The ability to reflect on a skill is something that, reflect on it is a skill that will last you your entire lifetime. Okay. I can't tell you how many businesses use reflection when they're planning their programming. Our office does it. At the end of every big event, we all meet in the conference room. Well, we all used to meet in the conference room. Now we all meet on Zoom, but we all meet in the conference room and we have a stop, start, and continue written on the board. And that's us reflecting on what happened. Okay, what was something that we really didn't go so well? All right, let's put it under stop. Okay, what is something that we want to continue that everybody loved that we did? Okay, we write that all down under continue. And then we brainstorm for new ideas. What do we want to start when the next time we have that activity? And so that's our version, that's our professional version of reflection. So this isn't something that just happens to you when you are a college student. It will carry you throughout your life. All right, so some ideas that you can use for reflection, obviously journaling, breaking down your experience with peers, kind of like how I had to do when I was in college in my educational experience background. Okay, writing an essay or creating a presentation based on your experience. This is key for internships. So if somebody sponsored you to do an internship, they're going to want to know what happened during your internship. You know, they're going to, maybe you had a foundation sponsor you to travel the world or something, and you're going to come back and make a presentation for them and share with them all of the things you learned. Okay, you also have an opportunity to review your experience with a trusted mentor. Maybe that is a faculty member that you share a lot of things with, or maybe it's even one of your supervisors at your internship. Those are great people to reflect with. So you want to use that reflection, and you're going to develop your hypothesis or your plan of action, and you're going to proceed through the next step. Okay, so how do you take control of your experiences? Okay, it's not built into your, let's say it's not built into your major, and you want to find these things out for yourself. The number one thing you need to do is you need to dedicate yourself to learning inside the classroom. You need to make sure that you're absorbing as much information as you can. And once you find something that piques your interest in that class, you need to explore those interests outside of the classroom. So go ahead and do some research and look up some things, ask some questions. You have an opportunity, if you're in school, you have an opportunity to schedule informational interviews with industry professionals, or you can schedule informational interviews with even faculty or people in your community that may have some insight into what's going on. If you're really interested, ask us to help you with scheduling a job shadow. We do that as well. And then you're going to go out and you're going to apply for internships that will help you get the experience in your field. Okay, you can also create projects, you can volunteer, you can do some research, and we have some of those opportunities lined up here in just a second. I'll share. So that's going to take us to Heath. And Heath is like the epitome of someone that took his experiences into his own hands and created his own path. So Heath, I'm going to stop the screen share here, and you're going to tell us a little bit about your experience at TU as a global scholar.
Sure. So yes, so for the background, I think global scholars, when you're talking about how there's certain experiential learning experiences built into certain degree paths, global scholars is really helpful for those students who don't necessarily have something built in. Like me, I do political science and Spanish, and although I can apply those fields to many myriad internships and jobs. As a part of my degree, there's no requirement that I have a hands-on learning component. So the way that Global Scholars works is that as a student, I take 2 co-curricular classes, one called Global Challenges and one called Sustainability and Urban Development. And those are essentially designed to expand the curriculum of any student from any discipline to think in a more global mindset and to approach emerging issues like population growth, the proliferation of technology and the potential conflicts or benefits that could come out of that. And then what we do as a part of this program is that we apply this directly to working with an organization, and we actually travel at the end of the year under normal circumstances to go do some of that work. So my cohort worked with various organizations in Panama, where we visited last May. Specifically, my group was with an organization called Luna Llena de Tambores, which is a cultural music festival organization that organizes monthly under the full moon these performances where, if you've ever seen Stomp, or where people use makeshift drums or instruments, they do those kinds of things to raise community awareness. They see it as a really important part of strengthening family culture and community culture within Panama City. And what they wanted our help doing was helping to look at the sustainability of their organization. So what my group did is that we looked at some of the ways their finances were working, whether or not they were actually reaching the audiences they needed to, and looking at some of their operational costs, figure out the best way that we could help them take their message, something of sustainability and understanding cultures and community, something that we had learned in our class, to try and build upon that, not only within Panama, but also to establish those connections within Tulsa, at the University of Tulsa. Even beyond that, Global Scholars is something beyond that initial project where I can keep doing that kind of experiential learning. And actually this summer, I'm doing another internship through one of our partners in Panama with the Janssen Coffee Farms, who raises one of the most expensive forms of coffee in the world called geisha coffee. And they're actually looking to expand some of their horizons to boost international tourism to their area and their province that we kind of saw some pictures on in that slide earlier, called Chiriquí, and with a more ecotourism-based approach. And so these are the kind of experiential learning circumstances that I've been able to encounter at TU, that even though they don't necessarily directly align with my 2 fields of study, they actually, I find to be a great benefit in the sense that they expand my curriculum beyond just being pigeonholed necessarily to one discipline, whereas that's something I'd probably end up having at another university.
Oh, wow. That's a really amazing experience. How long would you say from the start of, when you first applied and for the Global Scholars Program to right now, where you're kind of at the end and you're finishing that internship? How long of an experience is this?
So we just had a question pop up, so I'll address that as well. So this experience can start really at any year at TU, but the way it works is that it's a separate special application when you're applying. So I applied separately to be a Global Scholar. And so that meant that from day one entering as a freshman, I enrolled in the Global Challenges class and started this experiential work. Now, the meat of the work really started at the end of our first semester and the end of that first class, and then carried on through the May of the spring semester, where we actually got to go visit our partners and present some of the changes that we would suggest to their company. But even past that, this summer, I've been able to pick up work with another organization that we have connections with. And this is likely something that I can continue doing in the summers following in the rest of my experience here at TU. This is an option for all students of all disciplines, like that question was asking. So you don't necessarily have to study anything that has an international focus, but the challenge that Global Scholars presents to most students is to find that international connection. So we have students from STEM disciplines, we have students who are in music education, philosophy, religion. Really any student can and is challenged to find that international connection.
We have another question regarding your program. So is this program essentially, here I'm gonna read it out. Oh, I lost it. Okay. Is this program essentially a guaranteed internship program each summer, or do you have to interview?
So you do have to interview. The great thing about Global Scholars is that it is a smaller pool, although I believe we're trying to expand a lot of these opportunities. But because you have that valuable experience from already working with an NGO or a company prior in your Global Scholars classes, there's a really great track to continue your relationships with these organizations or other organizations. This year specifically was the first year that we've tried to roll out the Global Scholars Internships on a much larger scale, and that involved an interview process. So I had to fill out an application to advocate on my own behalf, talking about my skills and my experience working with nonprofits and the reasons why I would like to do that again with the Global Scholars. And then I actually interviewed again, and one of the people I interviewed with was Kelly.
Yay! So, and yeah, it was a really great experience getting to listen to all of you talk about your progress through the program. It's so eye-opening for so many students that I think don't understand that this exists for you here on campus. It's an opportunity. Did you catch that other one?
Yes, it was where you assigned a project or did the program let you choose? It's a little bit of both. So the way that the initial project works as a part of the Global Scholars curriculum is that we essentially form teams that are paired with various organizations. So typically 5 or 6 organizations are represented in the class, with each of those having a few students working on them. So the first thing that we do, as with any project, is we talk to our stakeholders to figure out really what they're interested in, what problems they have, some ideas they have for the future. And then from there, if they have a more targeted project that they were really hoping to get interns on, that's certainly a path we could take. But in my case, working with Lunayana, they had a number of different projects that they would like to work on, a number of issues that they were looking for an outside perspective to solve. So we actually got to sit down with them in person because we came to visit campus last April. And during that meeting, we were able to hash out a few specific plans that we would act on for the next coming months before we went to go see them.
Oh, that's really cool. So I didn't realize that they came from Panama to campus as well. Does that happen with all of the companies, or just?
It doesn't, but that's something I've heard a lot of talk of us wanting to build upon. Because a great component of Global Scholars is that it's not just targeted on understanding and doing things abroad, but it's also built on sustaining connections between TU and Tulsa and wherever our partners are abroad. So Lunayana came to do a performance at TU, and when they were there, we got to go have lunch with them and talk about some of their visions for their organization. But this is certainly along the same vein of the idea of sending students to go work in Panama for internships. Now, although I was supposed to be in those lush scenes that you saw in the pictures earlier and can't be right now, that's an opportunity I'll most certainly have again if I so desire it through Global Scholars. And so yes, lots of these companies can come visit us, and the exchange goes the other way.
Fantastic. So after you've been here in this program for a year, what would you say are like your top skills or top things that you have learned while you were in this program?
So I think what I consider to be the most useful and surprising part of Global Scholars is that the second class that we take as a part of our program, Sustainability and Urban Development, is largely a business-centered class. And I, from day one, was staunchly anti-business. I had never wanted to be a business major. It's never been something that's interesting to me. But actually going through that class and doing these case studies of various businesses and enterprises in other countries really challenged me to think more critically about politics and culture in other countries, which is really what I study in the meat of both of my majors. And so having a more, in some cases, quantitative approach, or in other cases, more of a organizational and strategic approach through business has really helped me, I think, take a couple of different perspectives on the disciplines I came into TU already deciding to study.
That's great. Heath, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it. We'd like for you to stick around towards the end if we have any more questions come in. So
Absolutely.
I'm going to go, awesome. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And actually your pictures are still on there, so we'll pop those up so you can see. So this is kind of your cohort here that you went for the 10-day trip in Panama, is that correct?
Yes, that's some of us. The picture of a lot of us was we went on a hike up a mountain just kind of spontaneously because we were visiting one of our partners on their farm who was giving us a tour. All of these pictures are from the Chiriquí region, specifically Boquete, which is a beautiful, lush area in Panama. But as a part of our trip, we also went to Panama City to study some of their challenges and fairly rapid urban development.
Oh, wow. Okay. So we're going to talk now. We're going to kind of change directions a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about how you can take those experiences like what Heath has talked about and some of your clinical experience that Cassandra and Brooke talked about. And we're going to talk about how can you use those. Here we go. How can you use those experiences to get a job? Okay. So many times you hear, well, you need a little more experience. You need more experience to have this job. And so we're going to talk about how you can use these experiences to put them on your resume, to talk about them a little bit in your job interviews. And Brooke, I'm going to have you share with us a little bit about how that will look.
So I think this is a really good opportunity just for you to think about a little bit about maybe opening your eyes to what you can really use as experience on a resume. So I think a lot of students get stuck on the fact that they have to be paid in order for it to be experience they can put on a resume, which is definitely not the case. You can use anything from work experience where you actually are working and getting paid. You can use internships, paid or unpaid, doesn't matter. You can use volunteering experience. If it is relevant to what you are applying for, it is still quality experience that can set you apart from somebody else. Job shadowing is also another big one, especially for Cassandra students who are looking at, they're doing a lot of clinical rotations and things like that. They're getting in shadowing hours. Those are important pieces to make sure that you document on a resume. It's another way to make yourself stand out, especially for her students in the case of getting into med school. Those are some of the key pieces that are really going to make them stand out on those med school applications. And then, like we said, for education and the nursing students and health students, you have that clinical experience. It can even be down to relevant projects that you're working on, things that you've had a hands-on opportunity to work on, even in your classes. And then if there are courses that are related to what that role might be or have trained you well for what that opportunity might be that you're applying for, those are also things that you can use that kind of give you that experiential piece that can set you apart in a job search or an internship search.
Brooke, I actually have an example of something that somebody might not consider putting on a resume that is really good for it. My son, who is currently a high school student, but he was at school, was at a research school for marine biology. And while he was at school, he was actually a part of three specific research teams. One on sea turtle research, one on conch research, and one on land crabs that were in the Bahamas. And he spent all of that time collecting data, out in the field and all of these things. And so now he is actually a contributor on all three of those research papers that will be published. So while that was just a part of his school experience, you can put that on your resume, especially, especially someone that is publishing your work and acknowledging that, yes, you did this. That's a very important part, especially when you're someone that's looking to further education and people are looking for those specific skills. So absolutely. If you have, go ahead.
No, absolutely. I mean, research is definitely a big piece. It's not necessarily something that, if you're looking to go further in your education, especially if you're thinking graduate school or even going to get your doctorate, those are some big elements that really come into play then. But I think as undergrad, you start to look at it and think, oh, maybe that's not the kind of experience they're looking for. But you never know what could set you apart, or even if it's just the fact that the topic that you did research on catches the attention of the person that you're interviewing with and provides an opportunity for you to have conversation. All of that is a great way to really set a tone for you and then provide an opportunity.
Yes. And, another thing is sometimes people are wondering where they should put experience on their resume. And if you have questions about where that belongs, definitely reach out to your career coach and they can help you, because obviously that wouldn't go under job experience. You wouldn't put that under, a job that you had, because that's not necessarily the case, but it is experience and you did learn things from it and you have skills now that you didn't have before you had that experience. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, because we have a couple of good resources for everyone that may be looking for creating their own experiences. Okay, so how to find experiential learning opportunities when you are on campus and you're not a part of something that already has it built in. First, I want to talk a little bit about this vsfsstate.gov. I am going to, this is a little tricky, so I have to stop the share and then pull that up, Okay, hang on here just a second. This is a government website that actually is going to have, let's see here. I got it. Hold on a second. I have it all pulled up and I think I have too much stuff going on here. So this is did it share? It didn't share, did it? Let me try it again. Here we go. There it is. Okay, so this is a government website that will post about 300, 400, well, actually now it's up to 650 projects to choose from, and students may start applying on July 1st. You will have a whole month from July 1st to the end of July, July 31st, to apply for these internships, projects, and they're all government projects. They're not paid. However, they're acceptable. You know, they have all majors accepted. And some of the jobs are with NASA or with like tourism. Looks like I'm going really slow here today. With the tourism industries and things like that. So you need to definitely get on there, check out that website so that you can see what projects they have are available. Looks like my internet's getting a little slow here. So, and I'll move on to the next one. This is global engagement, which is what Heath was talking about. This is located at the University of Tulsa's website. So I encourage you to click on there and to look for any opportunities that may interest you there and look into that program. Then we also have the Turk Challenge. Okay, that is also at the University of Tulsa. It's the Undergraduate Research Challenge. It's very interesting. They have a plethora of research programs available for students. They even have a junior scholars program that they have high school students from around the Tulsa community get involved with. So if you're interested in research, that's definitely something you want to check out. And then we also have True Blue Neighbors, which is our volunteer service. And they actually have service opportunities, which a lot of people don't connect service learning with experiential learning. And I think they're kind of missing that just a little bit. You can learn so many things, and you can actually find things in your field in service learning that will definitely enhance your education opportunities here. And in fact, True Blue Neighbors actually has a public service internship. So you can actually earn academic credit if you apply for one of these internships. But they also just have volunteer opportunities that they love for the students to get involved in. And of course, we have our Handshake. So you can go to the Handshake login on CaneCareers.com. And if you haven't already created your account, you definitely need to do that, because they have a full internship search on there, and you can find paid, unpaid internships. And if you need some help with searching for those, you can definitely get a hold of Brooke or Cassandra or Chris Wong, who is in our for our engineering and natural sciences. And you can also talk with Leonelle Thompson, who is in the College of Business. And we even have a career coach. Is it Odell? Anita Odell?
O'Daniel.
O'Daniel. She is our veterans career coach. And so all of us are available to help you find these experiences. One really neat experience that they have on Handshake right now is with youth villages. They're looking for psychology majors, someone that is interested in going into social work. They're even looking for graduate students in that area to fill their year-long internship that is paid. They're at youth villages that's located in Tulsa. So those are all things that I encourage you to check out. All right, so let's see here. I think we are to our questions section. So if anybody has any questions for our panelists, let's hear from you. I think they were all asking Heath all of those questions earlier. I'll wait just a second. Oops. Okay. Rebecca raised her hand. Okay, Rebecca, give me a second. Rebecca, if I can talk you guys into getting on the Q&A section. I'm not quite able to get those questions here. Let's see.
So Jessica asked, what is the best way to connect virtually with employers? I can take this. There are a lot of different ways to do this. There's not necessarily one best way or the other. I think that right now, one of the platforms that gives you a lot of leverage is LinkedIn. It's a great way to create a profile and kind of create your own brand for yourself, and then go out and do a little bit of exploring. And it gives you a chance to search out and target specific employers or specific organizations. And then really it allows you to kind of like set markers with them to let them know like, hey, I'm watching you and I'm interested in working here, and make those connections with people that are already working there. TU also has a very unique platform. It's called Utulsa Connect. It allows you to connect with alumni to provide anything from mentorship to just an informational interview, or even just a conversation about maybe what a day in life is like for you. And so it gives you an opportunity to ask some of those questions before you really get out in your industry and see if that's really a good fit for you, or, you know, what is the best part about their job? What do they really enjoy? Maybe that'll pique some interest for you. And it may not be the person that's doing exactly what you think you want to do. I think that's part of the experiential piece, is figuring out where you want to land and what's going to be the best fit for you.
Okay, Heath, it looks like you've got another question. What are the best resources on campus to connect with that have set you up for success? And then what's the best piece of career advice you have for incoming freshmen?
I think I can actually lump both of them together. I think one of the best resources you can find are the people who are already doing the kinds of things that you're interested in. So you're going to come into college, maybe even if you haven't declared a major, but if there's a class that you're interested in taking, go talk to that professor. Talk to somebody who's working in that department and ask them what their life looks like within that field, whether or not if you want to become a professor specifically, but also because, you know, when I go and talk to the head of the political science department, he can give me a lot of advice on, eventually I'd like to become a lawyer, on what kind of directions I would take there, or other opportunities that also meet my interests. I think beyond that, getting involved in co-curricular and extracurricular programs like Global Scholars, or the honors program, or things like undergraduate mock trial, which I also do, are a great way to feel out those things that you might be interested in. All of that is great resume material, and it's also a great way to meet both like-minded students and members of the community who are working in the fields that you could be interested in. So career-wise, find the things that are interesting to you, or the kind of life that you're interested in having after college, and talk to the people who are doing that, or who you think might have the kind of knowledge on what steps you need to be taking as a student and a recent graduate to do that.
And then come see us so we can help you find that spot.
Right. We have another question from Rebecca for the handshake. Are they internships for students? As I look at the jobs, they look like real jobs, not like internships. It's very overwhelming. Broker C's, I'm going to let you answer that, because I know that you get that kind of a lot in your position as a career coach.
I'll field it. I mean,
okay.
I'll agree. When you get into handshake, if you don't whittle it down enough, that it can be overwhelming when you first get in there. So if that's the experience that you're having, I would highly encourage you to reach out to your career coach and let us help show you how to use those search tools. In Handshake, there's lots of filters so that we can help filter it down based on what you're specifically looking for. They are real internships. Some of them are jobs, but let's use those filtering tools so that we can whittle it down to what you're looking for. Are you looking for an internship only? Are you looking for something remote? Are you looking for something based on location? They have all those filter tools on the Handshake search options so that we can whittle it down so that it's not so overwhelming. Contact us and let us help you find what you're looking for.
And I can give kind of an example of that. When I was creating my student profile on Handshake, I was kind of able to put in some filters of things that if I had to do all over again, that I'd be really interested in doing. And so, because I was teaching myself how to use Handshake. And so I could even put in what my major is and what I would be interested in learning more about, classes I took, or I could put what my minor is in there, and then it will filter it down to those major specific courses or internships. But also it has a job and an internship, and you can, on that thing, you can just click you're only interested in internships, and you can click that you're only interested in paid internships, or you're only interested in unpaid internships and things like that. So it will whittle it down for you, and hopefully help it not be so overwhelming. But also, if you would like to, talk it out with a career coach, we can definitely help you do that as well. All right, any other questions? Okay, I think that is it. I just wanted to take a second to thank all of you for joining us, and to thank my panelists. And Heath, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. And Brooke and Cassandra, thank you for your insight. And we will talk to you next time. Thank you.